Computer time.
The time is 5:26 p.m.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Skyfall Blind Dreamer. Oh my goodness. I had a good time at the conference. First off, I meant to stream more when I was there, so apologies for not streaming more while I was at the conference, but I did not foresee just exactly how busy I would get. Whether it was from attending events just about all day, most days, especially Monday and Tuesday. A lot of the lucidity heavy stuff was on Monday and Tuesday. Went to a lot of research events, a couple of lucid dreaming related workshops. Yeah, a lot of research related stuff. And then let's see, some research stuff on Wednesday. There was afternoon keynote with the keynote on Wednesday was afternoon. The Thursday morning keynote, there was meetings going on. The general membership meeting, I went to that in the afternoon. On Thursday, Monday and Tuesday was all lucidity. Sunday, I had a 3 hour conversation with Dr. Elliot Gish. Amazing guy, very, very humble guy as well. In fact, we talked for an entire hour about lucid dreaming, and I thought he was just a guy who was there at the conference who shared my interest and shared my understanding of the subject. And I didn't realize he had a PhD in psychology and actually had studied this, written dissertations on it. I didn't realize that until after our first conversation, and my respect for him went through the roof after that because he didn't lead with that. I didn't find out otherwise until later. Very, very personal, very approachable. Have a lot of respect for this guy. Look forward to staying in touch with him. And so that was Sunday, talking to people and meeting people. I met Dash. She is part of the Tech for Dreaming group, Deshil Barkas. She did presentations at the conference as well. She did one main one. And I actually talked to her all about that Sunday and Monday before going to that presentation. It was amazing. It was a truly wonderful presentation that she did. Thoroughly enjoyed listening to it. Um, Monday, we had Dr. Stephen LeBerge, and he was part of a 3-person symposium on lucid dreaming. And that was really engaging and really enjoyable to kind of listen to and pay attention to. Dr. Martin Dressler out of, was it Belgium or the Netherlands? I have to think about that for a second. I asked him, and I talked to him about this. Dr. Martin Dressler, Belgium or Netherlands. It was one of those two countries. I know there's a journalist, Johannes from Belgium. Dr. Dressler might have been the Netherlands. I believe he might have been the Netherlands. He did some neuroscience related actual studies talking about areas of the brain that light up. He did fMRIs and MRIs, and he was talking about technology that you could use to basically do brain scans on someone while they're sleeping. How current like MRIs, that can be kind of difficult because of the way everything goes, but they're tracking, they're seeing which parts of the brain light up during different actions performed during sleep. So he showed that parts of that there wasn't really a certain frequency associated, like brainwave frequency that's associated with lucidity. He couldn't find any demonstrative evidence of that, at least yet. But he did show like really strong correlations to the basically stuff that we've kind of known, like that the motor cortex is very active, like when you're engaging in motor functions. The opposite side of your brain from basically the side that you move. That's pretty straightforward, pretty well known stuff, at least in that area. But um, there were other bits I didn't really follow completely because I'm not a neuroscientist by trade. So there were a few things that I kind of missed, but there was also I was absorbing a lot of information while I was there, and wasn't able to follow every single detail. Dr. Benjamin Baird, he was the chair of that particular symposium. I do remember there were technical difficulties. Dr. LeBerge was supposed to go first, but he had some issues getting the screen sharing on the computer and Zoom to work. Yes, they were actually recording that on Zoom and giving it to, there was a virtual group on Zoom that was monitoring. There was a hybrid research symposium. I went to part of that on Thursday. I actually caught the very end of it on Thursday. And a couple of talks I listened to on Thursday were interesting, particularly Karen Conkley's on Highly Superior Autobiographical Memory. That one was pretty good. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to Monday. So uh, Dr. Baird talked about some papers that we're dealing with, and a paper that he and Dr. LeBerge had worked on kind of like rebutting a rebuttal to one that had talked about 40 hertz brainwave activity being associated with lucid dreaming, and saying and actually demonstrating that that particular study didn't correct for basically the electrical activity of the eyes, and the eyes actually move more during lucid REM sleep than they do during non-lucid REM sleep, is what they found. And I think Dr. Dressler might have indicated that too, but it's something that they found, and that the particular study didn't actually factor those eye movements out. So they call the artifacts. Trying to remember the exact terminology. Not the easiest thing to remember at that particular moment, but he did talk about how that study didn't actually factor out the eye movements, and their study they did kind of demonstrated that. Computer time.
The time is 5:32 p.m.
Hold up here. All right. Okay, I'm still live. I'm gonna ask if anyone noticed me drop at all at some point. I'm gonna start scrolling through here, but my internet sometimes does its thing where it doesn't want to cooperate with me here at my house. It shows me live 554 because it said something about having issues, but I don't have any issues right now. That's always a worry of mine. Let me see here. We are at 5:33 p.m. Okay, we are doing good. I've been live for almost just over 6 minutes. All right, we're doing pretty good there. Okay, so where was all right? So they talks about eye movements and that that original study hadn't properly accounted for them, and that they kind of didn't find any like noticeable specific frequency, a wave frequency for lucid dreaming. And then Dr. LaBerge talked about, trying to think what he actually talked about during his talk specifically. I remembered it really well on Monday. I actually remembered it really well when I listened to it, but I've done so much since Monday. It's crazy. That's why I should have done more streams. I did that one earlier. I probably should go back and re-listen to it, see if I caught anything there. But I did that one Monday night actually. Oh, he was talking about a few different things. He talked about kind of some intro stuff as well, like things that he discovered, like how most what you call reality checks or state tests aren't very reliable, and his preferred method is something like rereading state test if you're going to do that at all, because you can actually create a dream sign and you're using kind of intention to do that, but because all state tests in general are dream control. And they're definitely not something that should be done alone as a practice. Like, that kind of came up, and there was the eye movement thing that came up, and something I'm trying to remember whose research. Oh yeah, there was somebody else's research that came up because I was curious about this, and I don't think it was his. I'm trying to think for a second because oh no, it wasn't his. It was Karen's actually. It was Karen's research about dreaming in the dark. That was something I listened to on Wednesday. So no, that wasn't his research that came up. Um, let's see here. Okay, I'm doing all this by memory, by the way. I don't actually take notes, so some talks I will remember better than others, just because of the nature of the amount of data that I was involved in. Like trying to pay attention to, and see each symposium. So the ones I went to Monday, Tuesday, I was 2:15 to about 5:45, so about 3 hours worth of material. Good amount of material there with a little bit of a break in there. I did actually get a chance to talk to Dr. LaBerge at the end of their symposium. I actually asked him about a couple things I actually was trying to ask. Oh yeah, he talked about Wake Back to Bed actually, and I ended up with like 3 questions, but only a couple of them are answered because it was just a lot of stuff I was trying to unpack, and then one thing actually caught his attention. But he talked about a study that I think he did with Wake Back to Beds, and that there wasn't really much of a difference in terms of the effect of doing, say, a 30-minute sleep interruption. So the term Wake Back to Bed or sleep interruption is also a term that is more widely used in that community. So sleep interruption, 30 minutes compared to 60 minutes. And he said there wasn't really a noticeable difference there. So shorter sleep interruptions are actually still really useful. And one of my questions revolved around that because he also mentioned at the end, I think, about the time it takes to fall asleep. And of course, I think the same way. I was thinking about that. I always talk about wake back to beds or sleep interruptions in terms of how long does it take you to fall asleep. I always talk about that. And so one of my questions that I haven't gotten an answer on yet, but it's really a validation question. It's something I already think. I just want to get validation from people who research it. So one of the questions I had was there any study or effect on a shorter sleep interruption, say 5-10 minutes, doing mild versus a 30 or 60-minute sleep interruption without doing mild? Was there a comparison on effectiveness? Because I'm generally recommending people who don't fall asleep very quickly to do shorter sleep interruptions. So I'm kind of looking for some validation or for some sort of context there. And so that's a question I asked. I haven't got an answer yet, but I did actually re-raise that in an email. And I'll get to that in a second. But I haven't gotten responses on that yet, but hopefully I will. I'm not expecting them to be very quick. I expect probably the people I email very busy people. So maybe I'll get a response in a couple of weeks when they get around to going through emails. So it could be a while, got to be patient on some of the stuff. And so one of the things Dr. LaBerge, I mentioned to him is that the rereading state test he talks about, I actually replicated that in Braille on November 19th of 2020. It was actually purely by accident. The more prominent of the two dreams that was involved in, because one of them said it didn't last but a few seconds. So number 16, where that was more prominent, was actually the way I got lucid is I was reading a piece of Braille paper on the kitchen counter. It had some of those lines down the side, maybe across the top. I'm just thinking about that for a minute. But there's like these little lines down the side where you kind of orient the paper to where like it's embosser paper, Braille embosser printer paper. And so I was flipping it around to trying to orient it. There are really only 4 ways you can orient a rectangular piece of Braille paper to read text. And we're assuming a double-sided paper. So you can flip each side around, and there are really only 2 ways per side to orient the paper because of the way that Braille embossers work. So I flipped it 180 degrees each side, couldn't make any sense of text, and I flipped it over and did the exact same thing, couldn't make any sense of the text. That's actually how I got lucid, just because of the properties of how Braille embosser paper works and how that particular physics wasn't working. And of course, just reading anything when you're dealing with complex data sets, if you don't know what to expect, you're not expecting anything, you don't have any particular narrative involved in that particular expectation, then it's not really a surprise at all to me that you get something that doesn't make sense, because you're not really expecting to get anything that makes sense, anything coherent. And when you're dealing with complex data sets, any complex data sets, this is actually a question I asked him at his keynote Tuesday night about, is text the only thing, or do any complex data sets work? Because one thing that was discussed Monday morning, I went to a poster presentation on Monday morning. I did mention this, talked to Dr. Remington Mallet. He prefers Remy. There was actually a joke. I'll get to that in the hospitality suite about formality in a little bit, but I haven't even gone to the hospitality suite yet. Let me get there Monday and Tuesday first, because I didn't really start going to the hospitality suite until Tuesday into Wednesday, really. Actually, no, that's incorrect. I did go on Monday. Yeah, Monday afternoon, lunchtime, the first timers welcome. I went to the first timers welcome because I was a first timer, and I ran into Dr. Kristen LaMarca in the hospitality suite. She has researched with Dr. LaBerge at the Lucidity Institute. Very approachable as well, at least when you can find her. I'm really bad at the visual aspect of that, so didn't really find her except for one other time. And since I had only talked to her a couple of times, I was Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning, I went to her kind of presentation, and then actually it was a workshop. And then Thursday, it was about 5:45, so that was scheduled to end. So I would estimate around, I think we actually got out of at 5:43, maybe 5:46, somewhere in that time frame. I actually talked to her, and that was before the ball thing happened that night. That was the last thing. And then I was trying to work on logistics of travel at that point as well. So I was kind of hyper focused when I left there and went to dinner. I'll get to that, because traveling did have its upsides and downsides with some of the chaos I had to deal with at the airlines. I'll get to that. But And so I met her in the hospitality suite Monday before I went to the research symposia, and then she was actually sitting near me when I was at that. I forgot that. Yep, she was actually behind me to the left. I was sitting. This is in Salon C. See, I can remember where I was sitting perfectly, but I can't remember all the context of the talks. Again, we're talking complex versus non-complex data sets. My mental model of where I'm sitting innately to me is not a complex data set, even though some people might consider that to be a complex data set. So I have a model and it's reinforced. The more I visit a particular location, the more my model is reinforced. And considering that I made an attempt every time I was in Salon C to always sit, except for one time, to always sit, go to the front row past the projector, which is on the right side. By the way, to do that, you go in the main door, you go to the right, and then cross the aisle and take that first seat on the corner. That was a noticeable landmark for me. So I almost always sat in that seat. So remembering where I was and remembering where other people who I interacted with were sitting relative to my location is easy. For example, in Dr. LaBerge's keynote, there's a person who I met, Krista, who sat directly to my left throughout the keynote address on Tuesday night. And I was in the exact same position in the exact same room. And so I remember that stuff very, very clearly, the layout of the hotel. That's, to me, that's not a complex data set. That's very much not a complex data set, but it's highly associative. So my mental mapping of an area is actually very highly associative. I actually visualize it. I'm visualizing it right now, describing it to you. So I can associate a whole bunch of random details, abstract and sensory, to those visualizations. And it's actually really cool. Anyway, where else did I? So Monday night, there's a keynote. The keynotes on Sunday night and Monday night didn't really catch my interest, but I did my best to ask questions where I could because I wanted to ask thought-provoking questions. There was one when computers were discussed Sunday night. There's a guy was talking about African mysticism and modern science. That was his keynote. And I discussed, he doesn't believe that we'll actually develop true artificial intelligence, but I brought it up. Also brought up the Turing computer because the thing he brought up from the British guy, like the calculating machine or whatever that was, made me think of the guys. If you haven't seen the movie Imitation Game, it came out about, I want to say, 5 years ago, 4 years ago. It's a very good movie. It's about Alan Turing and his work with MI5, the security service, I do believe, and cracking the German Enigma code, military intelligence, section 5, British government. That is their counterintelligence. I believe it was with them. I do not believe it was with MI6. I believe it was MI5. Yeah, because they did a lot of the cryptology stuff as well. Bletchley Park was MI5. So he worked with them and developed a machine that could actually crack the Enigma. And at least in the movie, it said that they were able to crack it because every single German communication had some of the exact same words in the exact same position. It was always something about the weather report at the beginning, so the word weather, and then they always ended with Heil Hitler. So they had weather and Heil Hitler in every German communication on the Enigma machine. And so that's how the Allies cracked the Enigma code in the 1940s. Well, anyway, went off on a little tangent there. That was a question asked, and there was something else asked Monday night. Tuesday night was the keynote that really got my interest the most. On Tuesday night and Thursday morning, Dr. Carr's. I paid a good bit of attention to hers. Didn't remember hers as well. Dr. LaBerge's, he basically took all the information straight from Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming. And so the fun thing was with Dr. LaBerge, meeting him in person versus, say, listening to a video is so much different. Like, I actually did get to meet him because I talked about those dream reports, and I actually got to talk to him for a few minutes. And I ended up emailing him those dream reports, and I asked him a couple of questions because I was also curious about, because I was curious about if REM eye movements in a lucid dream are correlative to you moving your eyes, in the dream to actually look at things. And people who are lucid move their eyes more in REM. I'm very curious, actually, on two fronts now because of my waking visualization that I do all the time. How do my eye movements compare to the baseline for a lucid dreamer? And also, is that a product of my waking visualization, just how I visualize things, compared to, say, if I'm not actually noticing visuals, am I still moving my eyes as much? And now I'm curious actually about that. And that's sort of my kind of pattern recognition, just recognizing the patterns of all that. And also, apologies if I'm talking too fast, but there's a lot of information I want to try to convey in whatever time I have available to me here. So I am attempting to convey quite a bit, so it may sound a little chaotic if I go off on some tangents, which I already have. So Monday night, Tuesday morning, I went to Dr. Kristen Lamarca's workshop. It was geared towards clinicians, so it was kind of out. The main theme of it was teaching clinicians about lucid dreaming therapy for nightmares. So it was actually outside of my area of expertise per se, but I was still able to follow along. All the lucid dreaming related information I already knew. And she talked about IRT, or imagery rehearsal therapy, which is actually very correlative with mild. In fact, you actually kind of follow very similar steps with a different goal in mild. So the actual concept, conceptualization of it was pretty familiar to me in that regard. So there were a few things I was able to follow, and then there were several things there's some things I weren't able to follow, but was able to pick up on, or rather, like, let me rephrase that. There are things I knew. There are things I knew going in. It was not a beginner's lucid dreaming type thing. It was for people who were more advanced in terms of knowing lucid dreaming in that sense, but it was also geared towards professionals, like who actually are advanced in terms of knowing, psychology. So on the lucid dreaming side, there wasn't really much there that I didn't know about lucid dreaming. On the psychology side, there were things that I didn't know but was able to infer or learn, and I asked questions and tried to learn from people around me as well. And there are things I didn't know and was able to learn, and that's a good thing. I'm able to learn and pick up something, even if it's not something just directly geared towards me. That's fine. I'm all about trying to understand things as well, because one thing, there's some things that we deal with here where we've dealt with a few things where some things from that could actually probably be beneficial. So learning how to understand some of those situations that came up was actually not bad. So there were things that were outside of my area of expertise there, but it was definitely worth going. And then, let's see, what did I do Tuesday afternoon? That was the morning. After that one, that's 2 hours. I believe I went to an early lunch. Wait, so there might have been I think there was another morning lucidity one after that I went to. I went to that, and then I went to, there's the Monday, I forgot the Monday afternoon symposium. That was Dr. Remington Mallet who was chairing. He talked about some dream reports that he did with dream views and Reddit. Actually, I think he talked about Reddit a lot and like looking through stuff. Of course, we all know about Reddit and how bad of a place it is to learn lucid dreaming. So no need to hash that out here, but he discussed dream reports, and he was looking for things like positive or negative lucid dreams, like were those positive or negative experiences. He's trying to find out if there were any like downsides. So he was going through dream reports, and it was sort of a survey. He did the same thing with dream views, but mainly to collect like a database of lucid dream reports. So it was very cool hearing him do that. Dashiell Barkas, amazing. She is amazing. All right. So what she is doing is she taught herself lucid dreaming. She taught herself to code and to build, like, she has I'm trying to remember what her degree actually is in, but I don't know if it's even a master's degree. I don't know if it's engineering or something related, but she taught herself to code. She taught herself lucid dreaming, and she's working on a device. It's not completed yet, but she's working on a device that involves using EEG and electrodes to cue her to know she's dreaming. So she has light cues set up in her bedroom. She says her partner's really annoyed by that with the lights flashing during the night. But so she has that. She's doing all this from home with no assistance and no like actual professional researcher working with her. So she's trying to create specific conditions without like someone there to actually monitor them. So she's doing all this by herself, and that I just applaud her efforts there, because they're really inspiring, honestly. So what she's creating is a device. She calls it the Dream Phone, and what she is able to do with it, and the concept is actually pretty sound, and I don't know all the details about how she's able to delete things or actually execute what she's doing. I'll have to ask her a little bit more, pick her brains about some details. I'm still learning Morse code myself. This revolves around Morse code. So she taught herself Morse code. Oh yeah, I forgot that part. She taught herself Morse code, and I'm actually doing that myself. It's fun. I've got A through J now, and I'm kind of using repetition to sort of reinforce that knowledge. And I'm getting to the point where, so what I did is I practiced the letters A through J. I practiced them consistently. Each time I went through a new letter, I did all the letters before it. I'm teaching myself to do it with eye movements for fun. And in case I ever get a chance to use that somewhere, I'm teaching myself to do that with the goal of also practicing that in dreams. And then I'm spelling simple words with the letters so I can use the letters in different orders, different combinations, and just recognize them by their tones and by their like cadence and not just in order. So I'm doing a little bit of that too, sort of experiment around with that. So having fun learning Morse code, but she taught herself to do that. So she could sit type on a device. Parts of the I think it's the forward part, I think, is positively charged and the back part is negatively charged. So by turning her eyes, she does left right eye signals. It's like turning a car steering wheel. It's not like if you turn. It's like you're moving your eye to the left and right. It's like on off. It can't tell. You know, there's a certain thing it can't tell. Like just it can just tell you're moving your eye in a particular direction, not necessarily how far you move it in that direction. It's like moving your hands on a steering wheel. You're turning the steering wheel to the left, but you reposition your hands all the time. So you aren't feeling with your hands how far you turn the steering wheel to the left or right. You're just turning it one way or the other, and it picks up on the movement. So I actually need to ask her about that in more detail, like how big of a movement is necessary to actually trigger it. But what it does is an on-off kind of trigger. So it's timing based. So she does dots and dashes, and actually is able to spell out letters and words on this device with the goal of being able to. So that data is then basically she has a microcontroller and I believe a laptop, or she doesn't even need it. I think the microcontroller she can program to do this as well. Basically translates these electrical signals into Morse code into English, and then that is sent through HTTP through Hypertext Transfer Protocol. She sends it to Twitter to post on Twitter, and the goal of that is to be able to actually tweet from her dreams, to use eye movements, because the eyes are one of the few parts of your body you can actually move freely while you're dreaming, while you're in REM sleep at any rate. So she's planning to do that. Now, she hasn't been able to get to work while she's dreaming yet, but she did successfully use the Morse code I just discussed earlier with the eye movements while awake to send a text to her mother. So that's the proof of concept, at least, is there. She's actually able to get that to work while she's awake, because of course she can confirm everything is working. So she's had issues while asleep with things like the wires, coming out, or being misaligned, or things happening, or a bug with the software or something happening while she's sleeping that she can't address while she's dreaming. So she's very much in a reactive at the moment. She's trying to she has a recorder, like recording things that are going on so she can see what goes on the next day, but she can't react to it in real time. So it's definitely a work in progress, but she's very intelligent, and I definitely think she can figure out computer time.
It's 5:54 p.m.
Right. We are at 5:54. Let me see when my last. Okay. 5:48. I want to verify I'm still live. The live 27:48. I'll have to go back and listen to this and see how well I'm actually doing with the internet here. I hope it goes well. And so that was on Monday. I'm trying to remember what afternoon presentations I went to on Tuesday. I know I went to a couple of things. There was some Lucidity things I actually went to. Oh yeah, there was one thing I thought was going to be more lucid dreaming related, but it turns out it wasn't actually. And so it kind of threw me the wrong way a little bit. And it was actually really, really funny, because it was more of a spiritual thing, and it was less of an actual like lucid dreaming thing. And it was more of like a different approach that I'm not actually used to. So it was really, really funny though, because the guy, Nigel Hamilton, bless him, he's doing his best. But it was really funny though, because he's trying to, the way my brain works is everything's associative. I mean, that's how memory works. But for me, because of how analytical I am, at least from my own observation and kind of what I was trying to convey, is that for me, like, I can't just call up emotions on command, usually without them being associated with events or things that happen. And so what he's trying to get me to do is not think and then to feel something. Well, by doing that, by trying to not think, I end up dissociating from all my emotions and becoming a detached observer and just monitoring everything that goes on around me. So it's actually quite funny, to be honest with you. So I at least, I try to find amusement wherever I can, even if I'm failing miserably at something. I feel like it's good to be able to find some sort of amusement. So to me, that was kind of funny. Spent a lot of time in the hospitality suite. I started going to the hospitality suite in earnest on Tuesday, and I started going because I realized, hey, a lot of people are just hanging around eating lunch. There are a lot of people I met at the conference just at in lunch. Ran into Robert Wagner a few times. I'll get to the literal running into Robert Wagner in a bit, but um, I met him first on Sunday actually, and was in the hospitality suite before dinner, before Dr. LaBerge's thing. I ended up talking for so long that it was like, got to get something to eat. But then at the same time, Dr. LaBerge's keynote's happening at 8, and I can't miss it. And I end up going downstairs, and this is where I accidentally hit Dr. Robert, or not the doctor, but I hit Robert Wagner with my cane by accident. It's getting up. I was like, we're not going to have enough time to get my quesadilla before I have to go to the keynote, Dr. LaBerge's keynote, which is amazing. And so I go, and I'm usually really good at spatial orientation awareness. I ended up getting just a little turned around here, and I ran into a chair with my cane, and wouldn't you know it, it's Robert Wagner just sitting there. And I accidentally ran into him with my cane. So Robert Wagner, just in the rare chance that you happen to actually see this, and in the rare chance that you actually watch to 30 minutes in, I'm sorry. My apologies for accidentally hitting your chair with my cane. I can honestly say, with full sincerity, that I did not see you there. Okay, that's out of the way. All right. Well, Dr. LaBerge's keynote was amazing, actually. It really was, honestly. It was truly amazing. And even though I've heard all the information before and knew what he was talking about, and even knew where he was going to go at several points in his presentation, because I've read Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming, and basically every time something comes up, I associate it. I enjoyed his keynote. I enjoyed his presentation. His way of delivery is hilarious. He's funny. He's energetic. He has a good sense of humor. I appreciate that a lot in a presenter. Even if you know what the presenter is saying, if the presenter can still keep you engaged, keep you following them, and make you laugh, honestly, that's a good presenter. So props to Dr. Stephen LaBerge. Sir, you did an excellent job. Thank you. One thing I really enjoyed that he did, because when I talked to him for a few minutes after Monday, I mentioned that I had heard a video of him where he did a presentation somewhere, and he had everyone close their eyes and try to point to the door and point to him. And I'm like, and I asked him, have you ever tried that with a blind person in the room? Because everything is kind of already incorporated into my model of everything. So I'm not sure exactly how well I did, but he actually did that. And the way he said it is like, someone, it was something about like, a person in the room, something about that, but he decided to do it Tuesday night. And it was actually like, there was some laughter going on. Obviously it was visual. Now, one of the things he did, and here's the thing he did, he had everyone close their eyes. This I thought was hilarious, because I probably one of the only people in the room who actually tracked him do this, because I don't use my eyes. He had everyone close their eyes, try to point at him and point at the door at the same time, and he stepped off the stage and moved to his right, my left. And it was absolutely hilarious. If anyone who was actually there is listening to this, did you pick up on that auditorily, that he did that? Because that was hilarious, honestly. And I was just trying to, I was just moving my left pointer finger as I was listening to him walk. It was hilarious. Because I don't, being in the front, of course, I can hear a lot better, but I don't know how many people actually picked up on that auditorily, because the room was actually pretty quiet. So you could have picked up on that. It was pretty obvious when he stepped off the stage, at least to me. And you could say I cheated, probably. Definitely haven't gotten to any questions yet. I will in a bit. I want to get through the conference, and then I'm going to open Q&A up. And when I get to that particular time for opening Q&A up, I will start reading questions from there, because if I were to go back to the beginning, I would never get through anyone's questions. So just letting you guys know, wait till the end, and I'll open up for Q&A. I really wanted to get all this conference stuff done first, because this was amazing, and there's a lot to unpack. So Wednesday, so Tuesday afternoon, I was in the hospitality suite definitely for a good bit. I think I went to one of research symposia. I think I went to one on Tuesday afternoon. I'm trying to remember what I went to. I definitely went to something there, and then I don't remember it completely. Oh yeah, Monday, Dr. Remington Mallet. He talked about people having there's one thing he discussed that actually paralleled up here to some of the omnis I've talked to here. And he talked about this is Monday. I'm going back to things as I remember them. So apologies if they're out of order, but I'm going back to things as I remember them and as I associate to them. And I actually associated to this because of a quote that I have from him. Not really quote, but something he told me. He said, because I had discussed my memory Sunday night with Karen Conkley, him, Dr. Mallet, Remington Mallet. And there are a few other researchers there. I think Dr. Michelle Carr, she was also there. That's when I met all of these people. It was Sunday night. It was after the reception. It was approximately, I say 11:06 p.m. when I met these people. That's Arizona time, by the way. So that would be 2:06 a.m. here on the East Coast, where I am now. So that was Sunday on the 7th. Well, actually, it would have been Monday morning by that point, but who's counting? No, actually, no. Yeah, Monday morning East Coast, Sunday night West Coast. Last Sunday, on the 17th. And so I was talking to people about the level of detail I can remember things, just even shorter term detail that a lot of people can't remember, the specific events, specific interactions, specific things that detail. Even going back almost a week, we're looking at 6 days right now. So I can remember the conversation. I was telling them all about, certain ways I can remember, everything I did the day before, how I flew out there. I still remember a lot of details from those particular flight numbers. I won't give them out, at least the ones from my home airport, just because that would tell you where I lived. I will say I was on American Airlines flight 584. Next to me were two women. One of them was from Dallas-Fort Worth area, the Metroplex, was flying out to Tucson. I believe they both had family there. The other was from DC, flew out of Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport. She was actually from Maryland, and she was flying Reagan Dallas to Tucson, and she had family there. They told me about the Air Force base that is near the airport. Also discussed that the turbulence that happens because of the heat that comes up off the ground, and sometimes that when the airport is closed because of the Air Force base operations right next door, you can see the Air Force jets taking off, the fighter jets taking off from the Air Force base, which is kind of cool next to the Tucson airport. I was also on Discord. Anomalous user was telling me, I think it was anonymous or anomalous, one of the two. I think it was anonymous user, something like that, was telling me, I was telling him I was on my flight, and it's like, are you in the airport? He was like, I'm like, nope. I'm on the plane. I was like, and I was joking around. I said, I'm not known for out of body experiences, and that goes to Bill Engvall's "Here's Your Sign," where it's like someone walks into the lost luggage office and says, "You guys lost my luggage." That person says, "Has your plane landed yet?" And he goes, "Nope, I'm having an out of body experience. Just wanted to check on it. Here's your sign." For those of you guys who aren't aware of Bill Engvall's "Here's Your Sign" routine, it's pretty funny. Anyway, so I'm on that flight. I'm on Discord. I'm on the Wi-Fi. I'm using my laptop actually on this case. I tried to track our takeoff. Actually, no, I didn't try to track the takeoff in Dallas Fort Worth. I tried to track the landing from in Dallas Fort Worth on my other flight and unfortunately missed that particular track. I was on the wrong tower frequency. I did track my takeoff from DFW going back the other way on my flight home, and I actually did observe some things, but I'll get to that later. Anyway, so just the level of memory detail. I was just an example of things I can remember. Even now, over a week later, that was from Saturday the 16th. So I was talking to Karen about that, and she was wondering how far back I can remember things. Not as far back, obviously, as good people in the studies that she did. She did studies on people with highly superior autobiographical memory. They can literally remember every single day of their adult lives in the level of detail that I remember last week. So it's pretty interesting. So we actually discussed that a little bit that night, and Dr. Mallet Remy, he invited me he wanted me to come by the posters on Monday and talk to him, and so I did that and talked to other people. Daniel Morris was there. He was working with Dr. Benjamin Baird, Karen Conkley, Dr. Rachel Rader. I wish I'd talked to more. The only reason I didn't talk to her more is because her research to me was just common sense. Yes, of course, mild is going to work better if you have a particular plan or something you want to do, and you use that particular plan when you do mild. And when you're imagining what you're doing in a dream, of course, it's going to work better. To me, that was common sense. Like she did a research study on it. It's amazing. She proved it. It's awesome, and she's great, and she's awesome. She's really fun to talk to. We both agreed that was common sense. We both agreed that was common sense. It was hilarious. It was awesome. Let's see. Kara was there. She taught me a little bit about her poster, Dr. Michelle Carr. We actually talked less about the research she specifically did that she was presenting. I'm trying to remember what it actually was. And we ended up discussing more about that she had done work with deaf individuals and people who were like, her thing was like, I think memory and the stuff that Claudia presented that on Tuesday. Yeah, I think, was that Tuesday or Wednesday? No, it was Wednesday actually. That Claudia presented that on Wednesday morning. Claudia and Karen presented. But yeah, we talked about her work with deaf individuals and how, I think they're more. She was talking about like being more prone to like nightmares or something. But hearing being one of the main sense that you use for like threat detection and danger sense when you're asleep. And for the deaf, they do not have that. And so sleeping is very much different for them. So it's something that, was very intriguing because I hadn't heard of a lot of work actually done in terms of dreaming and lucid dreaming or anything like that with people with disabilities like myself. So I was very intrigued to hear Dr. Michelle Carr's explanations on that from Monday morning. And then, yeah, Dr. Mallet was, oh my God. I said all of that to go back to here. I get this from my dad, guys. I get this tangent business from my dad. Apologies. I said all of that to go back to Dr. Remington Mallet, talking about. I'd asked him a question about, what did I ask him initially? I asked him two questions. There's something I asked him about initially, and then later he was talking about people who lucid dream more than they want to, or have like intrusive lucid dreams, or are maybe someone's like narcolepsy or somebody who's lucid dreaming more than they would like to. And I was telling him about how some people in our communities, omnis, have been able to actually use intentions and even inside dream to make it so that they don't remember their dreams, or they suppress, or they don't dream about like anything, or they can make it so that they don't remember their dreams. So I actually mentioned that because and I was like, I just remember something. It was like, I said, I just triggers. It said, I bet a lot of things trigger your memory because we'd had that discussion Sunday. So that was 20 minutes of your life you'll never get back. Apologies. Okay, through Tuesday, I don't remember what presentation I went to afternoon on Tuesday. I talked about dinner. Wednesday, there's Claudia. Oh yeah, Monday there was the lady Clarita. She was talking about athletes and lucid dreams. And there's some issues with her study that she mentioned about like there was an error in the coding of it, that there wasn't a response for non-athletes about like certain particular things or certain things. So she wasn't able to get a more accurate sample size. But she was talking about like athletes don't really use their dreams as much, to perform or to practice as much. She was trying to look into that, but she didn't really get any statistically significant results. So I didn't follow that one as much. Let's see, Wednesday, Claudia. Don't remember her last name. Apologies, Claudia, but you were fun to talk to. I just don't remember your last name. I'm sorry. If you're seeing this, which you're probably not, but I'm sorry I don't remember your last name, but I'll probably get it from somebody eventually. Anyway, her research, she worked with Dr. Michelle Carr and with Karen Conkley. Karen Conkley does some of the coolest research that I know of. She does stuff at the Northwestern Sleep Laboratories. And she's awesome. Anyway, the three of them collaborated, and Claudia presented this about memory incorporation at different stages of sleep and different times of the night. So they woke people up 12 times a night in their study, and they basically had them document like what they were dreaming about, what they're doing, and non-REM and REM dreams. And they're saying like non-REM dreams tend to incorporate more recent memories. Same with earlier night dreams. They tend to incorporate more recent memories or more what happened through like that day or maybe a couple of days. And then the further into sleep you go, and especially the more REM sleep you have, the more memories tend to like become, less about like just more recent stuff. The more you tend to incorporate a wider variety of memory sources. So more abstract associations, more abstract connections, things from earlier in your life, other things like that. So the further in the night, the more you're like you do with REM sleep versus non-REM dreams, the more you tend to incorporate more esoteric sources for memory incorporation. And non-REM dreams and early night sleep tends to be more recent things that happen to you kind of dreams. So that was actually really interesting hearing all of that. And the fact that they woke people up 12 times during the night and, got dream recall from that. That was amazing. It was cool. Now, the actual waking up 12 times during the night, not so cool, but the actual research, cool. Karen Conkley, she presented She didn't present the HSAM until Thursday. What did she? Oh yeah, she presented Dreaming in the Dark. This was actually really cool. So what she had people do is she had lucid dreamers in a study. Actually, this is in the sleep lab at Northwestern. Again, I told you, I was just saying they do some of the coolest research there. They were actually measuring brainwave activity in people who, have their eyes closed. And she says you have higher alpha waves. I think that's is it higher frequency or lower frequency. I think it's higher frequency, but you have higher alpha wave frequency in your brain when your eyes are closed and you cut off visual input on to your brain. You have higher alpha waves. So she wanted people to test this in a lucid dream by closing their eyes in the dream and seeing if they could get the same results. Now they were able to get statistically significant results with that study for people who actually did that, and they had controls for it as well, I believe. And they were actually able to demonstrate that yes, you do have higher alpha waves on frequency, like you have higher alpha wave content in your back, the back of your brain. They were saying when you close your eyes, you cut off visuals on purpose in your dreams. They're having people do this. As a blind person, I found this very interesting, and Kara knew I would. It was pretty cool, but I found that very interesting. And she said it was to a lesser degree than if you're actually awake, but it's still definitely a thing. So her research was quite interesting there. Spent a lot of time in the hospitality suite Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I talked to a lot of different lucid dream researchers, Dash, Elliot, Karen was there, Michelle was there, Remy. He stayed in the hospitality suite, so I called him a lucky guy, basically, for being able to stay in the hospitality suite. And it was really funny because we were joking because I kept calling him Dr. Mallet out of respect, and he kept telling me to call him Remy, kept correcting me, and I was like, you don't really like being formal, do you? And it's like, no. And then I was like, you're staying in like the most formal room of the hotel, right? And then his response to me was perfect. He was like, and sometimes you have to make sacrifices. The context, though, from that statement is we're standing in the hospitality suite, which he's staying in. So sometimes you have to make sacrifices. When I was talking about being in the most formal room of the hotel and not liking being formal, staying in the hospitality suite, which, by the way, had a giant living room that could hold comfortably hold like 40 people, had a balcony that could hold like 10, 15 people with a table and all this stuff, private bedrooms. At least I think it had 2 bathrooms. This was an expensive room. Let's put it that way. It was a good room, and he didn't have to pay for it. So the context makes that very, very funny. Remy has a great sense of humor. Yeah, I do. Remy, I do hope you get to see this. I've really enjoyed the conference, and I'm enjoying talking about it and just airing my conference experiences out for anyone to listen to. But yes, that was hilarious, Remy. I'm not gonna forget that as long as I can maintain that particular memory because that was hilarious. And then let's see, where do we go from there? Yeah, Wednesday afternoon rather, there was a keynote. Oh yeah, that's one of the things I did Wednesday afternoon. We all went to the keynote. I kind of took it easy on Wednesday, so I went to the keynote. I kind of hung out on Discord that afternoon actually at lunch. I went to hospitality suite after the keynote until 8:00. It shut down for the art reception. I got dinner. Actually, no, I got dinner before that, but I spent a lot of time in the hospitality suite. Went back to my room. Meant to live stream that night, but ultimately didn't because I had a lot to do. I had to email on Monday night. I had to email when I did live stream Monday night. I had actually emailed Dream Reports because Dr. LaBerge and Dr. Lamarca were interested in a couple of things, but was actually emailed some Dream Reports to some people about that state testing I mentioned earlier. Then Wednesday night, I chilled for a couple hours, and then I joined Tech for Dreaming Discord. It's a more kind of advanced thing. I went and joined some of the stuff there. And then I went to the hospitality suite after 10, and I went there for 3 whole hours at the hospitality suite. I went around 10:20 and stayed until 1 in the morning and just talked to people. Dash, Elliot, I think Michelle, Karen were both there. Michelle left earlier. I think Karen was there for a bit. Claudia was there. We talked a good bit. I talked to Claudia a good bit. In fact, I should be able to get her last name from an email I sent her because I was working on like some fiction. I sent it to Elliot and I sent it to Claudia. So I should be able to get her last name from an email. In fact, let's do this live. Let me get Claudia's last name so I can do her justice. This is for Claudia. Let me go to my Ticket HTML view, yay! Sent mail, yay! Claudia Deland. I think it's Dr. Claudia Deland. She's from Montreal. So she's a Quebecois, I guess. Montreal in Quebec. So that is Claudia Deland. Very, very nice. She's the one I talked about who presented the memory sources research. So Wednesday afternoon there was a keynote. I didn't really follow that one particularly. That one's about pandemic related dreaming. I didn't really follow that one as much. I still paid attention to it, but I didn't follow it as much. It wasn't as interesting to me. And then Thursday morning was Dr. Michelle Carr's keynote, and that involved nightmares. And at the end, it involved it. She discussed lucid dreaming at the end. There, she was mostly talking about nightmares, like reasons for nightmares, and how they occurred, things that can be done, kind of to work with them. I followed along a bit, and then it's hard to remember everything. What did I ask her at the end? Because that I know I had a good question for her at the end. I'm trying to remember what I asked her at the very end there, and it's kind of slipping my mind a little bit. I'll try to remember it later, but trying to remember what I asked Dr. Michelle Carr at the end of that. So I tried to ask decent questions. Thursday morning, I kind of took it easy after the keynote. I went to lunch, then I went to spend a few hours in hospitality, so we basically shut it down until we all left. I went to the last bit of the research hybrid symposium. The main talk I really paid attention to was Karen Conkley's about HSAM that I mentioned earlier, highly superior autobiographical memory. There are only 60 people in the United States that have this. It's very rare. It's very unique. She talked about dreaming in these individuals, how dream memory seems to be, in terms of level of recall for most of them, seems to be very similar to like level of recall for other people as well, except for one person that was kind of an outlier that was able to remember like all their dreams all the time consistently. And so she she thinks it's an issue of memory encoding, that about why people don't remember their dreams so much. So it's encoding the memory when you wake up, and that you have worse encoding when you're actually asleep. So that's why it's easier to forget dream memories. That's sort of something she talked about. I actually asked her a question at the end of that. Wow, I'm actually two questions. The first one, I'm trying to remember. I think the first one I asked her was about abstract content in terms of association. So I asked her about whether or not people, with HSAM, like, if you remember, like they say that they don't remember, as, that it's not like, they remember every single thing. So, studying for tests or academic work, it's not that kind of memory. It's autobiographical. It's like everything they did. So I'm thinking like, so they could remember, say, looking at their textbook in a math class, but not what they were actually looking at in the textbook. So I kind of used that as an example, and I was asking her about that. Then the other thing I asked her was, how well do these people do with intention setting and with intentions? Because can they remember setting the intentions to do something if they remember what they were doing in extreme detail? And can they remember to do that? And she didn't really have an answer because I don't think that's been studied. So I was trying to go out of the box a little bit, and so that's something that actually hadn't been studied yet. So they hadn't gone into detail on that yet. So hopefully we may learn more about that in the future. It was a really interesting topic. And let's see, I still don't remember what I asked Dr. Michelle Carr that morning. I guess I was just really, really tired. I didn't get a ton of sleep that night anyway, so that could definitely be a reason for not remembering that as well. I was sitting in the same place. I definitely know that. I know I asked her at least one or two questions. I know I asked her at least one at the end of her keynote, because I made a point to ask, I think, every single keynote speaker a question. And just about every event I went to, I asked something. So I was trying to get people to think, and to get myself to think, and to sort of, just think more. That's really what I was aiming for. Had a lot of fun though. So at the end, Thursday, I had to check in for my flights, had some issues with my flights. Had to get a ride to the airport, ended up getting an Uber, somebody helped me with. It was a pretty long trip to the airport. It's about 40 minutes from the resort. Left at 6:30 in the morning, so I get to the airport in time to deal with the check-in desk and checking in some stuff. I don't usually go to the check-in desk, but I had to resolve something with my flight, got that resolved. Flew through Dallas, Fort Worth, enjoyed connecting through Dallas both ways. Actually, if the Skylink hadn't broken down, I probably would have never learned what a grilled macaroni and cheese sandwich was. But yes, Panera Bread does sell grilled macaroni and cheese sandwiches, and they're good. So yes, I enjoyed getting that. And then I flew home, came home safe and sound, and just basically rested yesterday. And that is my experience in the International Dream Conference. Some definitely things that I missed. Had hours worth of lucid dreaming conversation, bouncing ideas. I remember one conversation in hospitality, so we talked about dream ethics, and Elliot and I kind of were agreeing a little bit here. I was talking about like there's no set single model for what dream ethics are, like what would be okay to do or not to do in a dream. I think that very much depends on who you are and how you see dreams. Like what do you see dreams as? You know, if you see dreams as deeply spiritual, or if you're like me, you see dreams as something that is very entertaining and fun to explore and to enjoy, you know, you're going to view things very differently. So I definitely think, you know, because I use the examples of video games, for example, because she was bringing up like, if you're doing a bunch of violent things like killing people or doing things in dreams, and it makes you more likely to do them in waking life. I brought up Prikif actually, so it's hard to find something he hasn't eaten in a dream, and he's a really nice guy. I know for a fact he hasn't killed anyone while he's awake, so I think we're pretty good there. And then Elliot, you know, kind of made that parallel connection to violent video games, and I kind of brought the same thing up too. You know, violent video games have been shown to not actually be a cause, like, you know, to actually lead to violent behavior. It's like knowing, you know, I think the important thing is kind of lucidity here too, kind of knowing you're in a dream, or, you know, being in that sort of state where it's not really that big of a deal. You know, but if you know you're a dream, you're dreaming, you can kind of separate dreaming from being awake. I mean, you know, there's definitely some compartmentalization I think that goes there. But anyway, that was just one of the examples of one of the many fun conversations we had. All right, I've been live for almost an hour and I haven't got to any of your questions yet. We're going to start that now. Oh, you need to catch up. Ouch. Sorry to hear that. Computer time. Computer time. Oh, freak. What is the weather? Okay. Computer time. All right, internet's down. What is the weather? Whoop, I turned the wrong thing off. Let me. Computer time.
The time is 6:24 p.m.
All right, it's 6:24, guys. Hold on. All right, 6:24 p.m., guys. My internet briefly cut out. I want to know if anyone active in chat right now can hear me. Someone please comment that you can hear me. It's 6:24 p.m. United States Eastern Daylight Time. Okay. So it caught up really, really quickly. Okay. All right. All right, thank you. Okay, we're back. My internet did a thing. I'm going to have to go back and listen to this and see how much of it was actually interrupted by my net outage. I will have to go back through and listen to this. There are probably a couple things that got cut or that got jumped over. I do apologize for that. I can't, you know, I'm not the god of my internet. I can't predict when it's going to say screw you and throw my signal out the window. So since our ISP seems to be unable to actually find the problem, we're kind of stuck with that until we can get them back out here. So, all right. Okay. So we're going to open up to Q&A if you guys have any questions about lucid dreaming. If you guys have questions about the International Dream Conference. If you have questions about travel, what does it take to actually go to a conference like this? If you have any of those questions of the sort, please feel free to ask them in the chat. I am starting at the 6:24 p.m. mark. So messages sent after 6:24 p.m. This is the United States Eastern Daylight Time, UTC -5. For those of you who have questions. Yeah. Currently riding home from Ocean City. Okay, I guess you wanted your current location to be broadcast to the internet. I assume that's Ocean City, Maryland, I believe. So, yeah, we all know where you live. Congratulations. Okay, so you remembered 6 dreams in a 4-hour nap. Well, instead of just wearing a sleep mask, Almighty Cheeto, let me ask you, we had a 6 hours isn't a nap, Cheeto. 6 hours is well, a nap would be like a couple hours, but 6 hours, I don't know, I wouldn't call that a nap. I'd call that multiphasic sleep, honestly, at that point. If you slept 6 hours during the day, I call that multiphasic sleep. Like, you you slept 6 hours. 4 dreams in 6 hours. Also, it's, and the other several reasons here. One, you're sleeping during the day, you're likely to have more REM than non-REM, so there's that. And 2, you definitely had at least, see, 6 hours, 1, 2, yeah, you definitely had at least 4 REM periods. So yeah, 4 dreams at least, and they were probably decent length ones because tend to have more REM than non-REM sleep when you're sleeping during the day. So yeah, I'm not surprised in the slightest. You remember 4 dreams. That's awesome. That's unfortunate, Panda. I will say for me, it was kind of a kind of issue. It wasn't really I was too lazy to journal. I was thinking about doing it, but I was too busy to do it, and I didn't want to like do my recordings in front of other people or in that kind of environment. I wanted to do them when there wasn't a bunch of sound disruption around me because they're audio recordings. And so for that case, there was one recording where I recorded 4 days worth of dreams. It was, I think, it was Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, it was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I recorded all on Wednesday night, and so yeah, I recorded 4 days worth of dreams, 17th to the 20th, in one audio recording. It's about 20 minutes long. So yeah, good. You live in Ohio, you're just like Ocean City. Is it still Ocean City, Maryland? It probably is. Okay, now we do know where you live. You live in Ohio. Congratulations. Only 2 hours. Yeah, you only got 2 hours of sleep, and then you slept 6 hours. Yeah, that all fits, Cheeto. It's yeah, pretty sure it's not the sleep mask. I'm pretty sure it's the fact you got 2 hours worth of sleep, and so you didn't have much REM. You got some REM rebound during the day. You had 6 hours of sleep during the day when you're likely to get more REM sleep anyway. You probably had more intense REM than you otherwise would have because you only slept 2 hours the night before. It's terrible. So yeah, that quite sure that's where that came from. Until you cross into Ohio, I currently have a soul. What? Okay. I know some people in Ohio too. Pretty sure they have souls as well. So, what did I ask LaBerge? Oh, I actually mentioned that earlier. So I asked him a few things. One, at the end of his presentation, I told him about how I was able to replicate his rerouting state test during during my 15, 16 lucid dreams. That was when I went back and sent the dream reports. That was on 11/19/2020. Now going actually back through some dates here, 3rd, 4th, the 4th plus 14, that would make it Wednesday. Yep, we are looking at Thursday. So that was a Thursday, November 19th, 2020. Yeah, I thought it was a Thursday. I always thought those dreams were on a Thursday. I was right. They were on a Thursday. So yes, I told him those, and he got interested in that, and so I ended up sending dream reports. But then I also asked him about wake back to beds. I asked him a few things. I asked him first about wake back to beds, and I didn't get an answer on this particular question. I asked him like, so if was there any study done on doing say a short 5 or maybe 10-minute sleep interruption with mild versus say doing a 30 or 60-minute sleep interruption without mild, and what was more effective? Because I'm pretty sure the answer is doing a shorter sleep interruption with mild, but I wanted to get some validation on that, and I didn't get a response yet on that one. But to me, that kind of makes sense. But I wanted to get an answer just to really see if there was any study done on that, or if there's anything that demonstrates that, just to understand that what I'm actually telling people to do is good advice. That's one of the things I was doing a lot at the conference, was trying to understand if what I'm actually telling people to do is good advice. So there was that, and then I also asked him, this is a question that did get answered, or at least discussed a bit. I asked him about eye movements because this is sort of my pattern recognition. There are a couple of patterns at play here. One, people who, eye movements in lucid dreams tend to indicate what you're looking at in the dream, like what your eyes are doing in the dream. And so there's that. Then there's, this is an actual study that was done. People who are in lucid during REM sleep tend to have more eye movements than people who are non-lucid. And then so I connected those two and came up with, okay, well, what about someone who doesn't use their eyes? Now, the thing is, though, I do actually visualize while awake, and sometimes just not aware of it. It's kind of a background process, but it's always there. And so I'm curious how someone like me who's visually impaired, how my eye movements while lucid would compare to the baseline for lucid dreamers. So I actually discussed that with him after that presentation. I actually asked him about that, talked to him, and he was interested in that too. Like, there's the thing is, no one knows the answer to that just yet. We're not really sure. So hopefully we can figure that out. I would love to figure that out. That would be fun. And then I asked him during his keynote, at the end of his keynote, I asked him about the rereading state test again. I asked him, is it just text or would it work with any complex data set? Because I'm quite sure it would work with any complex data set. He basically said, yeah, it would work with the rereading test that he recommends, would work with any complex data set, paying attention to it and then not observing it and observing it again, or intentionally trying to get it to change. And it doesn't have to just be text. He just chooses text because it's more readily available or should be easier to access. But it can be any complex data set that you could have that you can make change. And so that was what I asked him at the end of his keynote. Okay, Unlucky Panda, I do hope that works for you. I definitely hope that works for you. Technology is awesome, so if you can actually get it to track your sleep cycle, that's cool. Don't know how effective those are, but it's cool. Archer Osman. It sounds like a real name. I'm not sure if it is or not, because it could also be a fictional character, and I just wouldn't know. Do I have advice for actually getting shorter sleep interruptions? Oh, welcome to my world. Okay. A lot of the times, I either fall asleep right upon waking up, or you stay awake too long. Yeah, finding the balance can be an issue there. Yeah, that's true. For me, if I stay awake too long, for example, if I stay awake 30 minutes or more, that's probably going to take me 40 minutes to fall back asleep or longer. Really depends. So for me, like, the optimum thing is to just do a technique and go straight back to sleep. For you, honestly, I would probably need more data. I need to understand, like, what's the deal going on? Is it something that's purely natural? Like, are you waking up and just sometimes you're just falling straight back asleep, and then you're just not doing anything, but you're just struggling to fall asleep? Or are you waking up and then the times you take for a long time to fall asleep, you actually got up and did something? If you got up to use the bathroom, you got up, you just stayed awake for a little bit. You got up, did techniques. Like, I need more data here. I need to know what it is you actually were doing, if you were active at all, like what you were doing, maybe how long into your sleep this was. There are a few variables I think I would need to know here before I could actually advise you on something. My generalized advice would be to try to, stay awake only as long as it takes to do a technique in that type of situation, but I don't know what the exact, situation is. So I would need to know more to actually understand what your situation is properly. Will I go again next year? I already looked at the plane tickets to Medford, Oregon. That is $600 round trip airfare on American Airlines. So yeah, and considering I have 11 months to plan instead of 5 months, I'm going to basically plan everything I do, probably saving money-wise. I'm going to start saving money now, and then I'm going to plan around making sure I can actually get there. Ashland, Oregon is about as accessible as driving a car. Middle of nowhere. And so yeah, I definitely want to go because I had such a great time and I met such a lot of interesting people, and I know for a fact some cool people I met this year are going to be there. So Dr. Michelle Carr, she's the president of IASD, and so she'll almost certainly be there. And Remy, he seems to have gone to a lot of these. I hope he shows up again. There's likely going to be, I might have a chance to present next year. I have a few things I could talk about. I want to do like a morning dream group and actually teach lucidity, like lucid dreaming, to people, and teach dream recall and mild specifically, and then help people throughout the week break down any dreams they were able to remember, help them remember dreams, help them break down what they did the night before for practices, and see if I can get anyone lucid by the end of the week, because that would be really cool. So I'd like to do a dream group like that, and at the very least, leave the participants with a structure to practice and to keep continuing practice to actually get lucid. So I would love to do a dream group. The other thing I think would be really cool to present on that's very unique for me personally is being blind and the effect that blindness has and my memory and how I use waking visualization and adapt my other senses to form a visualized mind model of my surroundings because my approach to doing that is pretty unique compared to the average person. So that's something I think would be really fun to present on. I could go on all day about how that works, at least for me, how it works from my own observations. So it's kind of cool. And so that's something I feel like I could discuss. All right. Good memory is useful, and yeah, you should definitely want it. Good memory is awesome. But yeah. It should have plugged my channel. I actually did mention my channel to a lot of people. Remember, I don't go around self-promoting that much. I try to let my content promote itself. The only reason I even bother mentioning my channel while I'm there is because it's in person, and I'm showing people what I actually know by talking to them in person, so they can actually see who I am and what I know. And so at that point, I'm already there. So I tell them that about my channel, but I'm not going around just advertising everything. But I did actually get at least 2 people on OmniLucid. At least 2 people joined OmniLucid as a result of me being there, and there's some other cool stuff. I got to meet a lot of people and network with people and get to know people. Hopefully, I was able to build some connections that'll last longer. I hope to be able to stay in email contact with a few people and just be able to occasionally send emails or ideas back and forth. I'd love to get notified of any interesting research that goes on. I'd love to become a participant in anything that requires participants. I'd love to get involved in some of this because there's a lot of really cool stuff going on, and I'd love to be involved in it. I'd love to get to know about it. I'd love to see if there's anything I can do to contribute to anything. I'd like to get involved. I'm very intellectually curious, and just I enjoy the subject matter, enjoy lucid dreaming and dreaming in general, and absolutely love what they are doing right now. So it's awesome. No, Cucumber, you should not. Computer time.
It's 6:38 p.m.
Okay, I'm 7 minutes behind, guys. Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind at all, Void. I wouldn't mind. He has 6 toes. That's hilarious. Yes. Let's put it this way: if the airplane crashes with you on it, you're not paying for anything. At least at the end of the day, you're probably getting a lawyer and suing the airline for surviving a plane crash that probably, depending on how serious the plane crash was, and it depends on whose fault it was. Like if it was a mechanical failure that should have been preventable or something like that. Now, if it's a bird strike, you probably don't have much of a claim, but the airline's still going to want to keep their customers. So the airline's likely going to try to do something to keep people from suing them because, the last thing you want to do is be in a plane crash. At the bare minimum, you'll have something, probably something, to do. But also, like, if the plane goes down and it's pilot error or it's a mechanical failure that caused the plane to go down, if it's something that was preventable, then the airline's probably at fault and they're probably paying a good bit of money to keep people from going to court. So I think you'll be fine. But let's put it this way: you're more likely to get into a car accident, suffer serious injuries, and end up in the hospital driving yourself than you are on a plane. It is statistically proven that you're at least 3 times more likely to die in a car accident than on a plane crash. So yes, air travel is extremely safe. Now, there are issues going on right now with lost baggage. There are issues going on with delayed or canceled flights. But with all the issues and the chaos going on with air travel right now, there aren't issues going on with planes crashing and people dying. Someone's being delayed their vacation a couple of days, usually. Or, God forbid, you lose your bag. Well, you're still alive. You're not in the hospital. I mean, yes, it's bad if you lose a lot of money worth of your personal belongings, but look on the bright side. You're still alive. There aren't planes aren't crashing right now. I mean, that's just air travel in general. Plane crashes are rare. So yeah, that's Not something you have to worry about. Oh, hey, I'm caught up. 6:38 computer time. Oh, hold on a sec. 6:41. I am losing. Off. What is the current weather?
It's currently clear and 91 degrees.
Computer
Slight
time.
cloudy skies and partly
The
cloudy
time is
skies.
6:41 p.m.
Okay. I still have internet. Okay, so you guys can still hear me, hopefully. Does Dr. Stephen LaBerge know about the massive amount of information on YouTube and the internet? Does he care? Yeah, just about everyone at that conference knows about the misinformation on the internet. I've brought up YouTube. Dr. Ermington Mallet, for example, he follows a lot of the internet stuff. He's very familiar with that. Dr. Elliot Gish, who I talked for 3 hours with on Sunday, very familiar with like the stuff on YouTube. He didn't mention ELD specifically, but he mentioned lucid dreaming experience. We talked a lot about just the misinformation that's out there. We talked a lot about this stuff and how people end up with false expectations of what lucid dreaming is. I didn't talk to Remy as much about it, but I talked about it with several different people and about the misinformation. Just about everyone there that I spoke to about it knew about it and understood that it was an issue. So now I don't know how in tune with all that Dr. LaBerge is personally, because this is we're dealing with more of like a younger generational type thing here. There is a generational gap there. But I know for a fact that people there are fully aware of the issues with, the misinformation out there on lucid dreaming and just online in general, the prevalence of it. So yes, that is definitely a known thing. People know about it. I'm able to create a visual environment, only vague. I mean, I can create a visual environment right now. With my eyes open, I'm visualizing my waking surroundings, my computer desk, the shape of it. Even though I can't see it, I'm kind of visualizing the distances and the way where things are located, how far away my bed is, where it is. I'm thinking about it right now. I can visualize the hotel I'm in very accurately, the walkways, the pillars, where the Cascade Lounge was, the hallway, the grab and go spot, how you get to the elevators 5 and 6, the staircase in the middle, a lot of things. I can visualize a lot of things. And so, yeah. I can do that right now. It's not really a priority for me, so I don't really focus on it in dreams, but I visualize a lot of times just without being aware of it. So it's just not a priority for me. Suing people costs money. That is true, but winning lawsuits gives you a lot of money. And trust me, if it was an actual plane crash, that would be a class action lawsuit. You'd have law firms would be like chomping at the bit. They would be slathering all over that because that's a lot of money for them too. But those types of lawsuits usually you don't pay until unless there's a settlement in your favor. So usually, like if it's an injury type lawsuit or something of that nature, you don't usually pay unless there's a settlement in your favor. So it's very much the lawyer's risk. The lawyer gets a good cut of that settlement. They get like 40%, but they don't collect unless they win. And you don't pay unless you win. So, it kind of works out for the clients in the end. You're in a car right now. Well, let's put it this way, Void. If I was in a car and I was driving, then you should really, really be worried. Awesome, you're caught up. Computer time. 6:45. Computer time.
It's 6:45 p.m.
Good. All right, 6:45. I'm only 4 minutes behind. Now I'm on 1 minute behind. 21 Dreams Journal, and I'm going to keep practicing. Good for you. Keep it up, man. Keep it up. All right. I officially caught up with the chat, guys, and we have been live streaming now for well over an hour. Do you guys realize that I've been streaming for like an hour and a half? I don't even know how many viewers I have, but this is hopefully going to get a good bit of views. I basically practically just did my own presentation about the conference. I did an overview presentation on the conference, all last minute, without any preparation and no notes, which is how I usually do things. So I think I'm actually going to get ready to log off here because my computer is at 32%. I just plugged it in. It's usually not very appreciative of me running long live streams just on battery power. It started at 80% and ran it down to 32 over an hour and a half. Live streaming definitely takes up a good bit of power and a good bit of internet, if we're being honest. I did turn my camera off on purpose, so there's no visuals on this one. Yes, y'all will. Well, guys, I'm gonna let you guys go. Thank you very much for watching. For anyone who made it to the end, you guys are troopers. So thank you for that. I'm very appreciative of you guys joining me. I am very appreciative of everyone who stuck through to the end. Let me just see. How many? Oh, we're only down to 2. Okay. 12013. Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone, guys, who came out and watched. Thank you so much. If anyone made it to the end who's watching this on replay, which I expect a lot of people are going to watch this on replay, thank you very much for watching. If you're not subscribed to Skyfall Blind Dreamer and you wish to be updated with any more live streams, Q&As, lucid dreaming information that I put out, or anything that I discuss, please let me know. I'd also hopefully plan to interview people as well. And so I'm really looking forward to doing some interviews as well on my channel. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate your time and appreciate you for watching. If you're 13 years of older, you'd like to join any Discord communities, I have links to Dream Cafe and Omni Lucid down in the description below. For now, I have been Skyfall Blind Dreamer, and I wish you a pleasant day, whoever and wherever you may be.